Today I wanted to talk about Saab 9.3 trims and just go over all the different trims that were offered in America. I want to make it clear right now that I'm referring to the United States in this video because I know Europe has a lot of different names and different engines that come with their different trims. So I'm going to be talking about America, and I'm going to be talking about the new generation Saab 9.3, which is, well, similar to what's right behind me. This is my 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X. And the new generation 9.3 started in model year 2003 and of course went until 2011, 2012 when Saab was shut down. So as time went on, Saab kind of changed their names of the trims, especially towards the end. They kind of changed up the names a little bit. They got rid of certain trim levels here and there. So I'm going to just kind of try and cover them all and try to be as specific as I can. But I'd say I'll start with this because I think it's probably the most commonly asked trim related question is, what's the difference between the linear, the arc, and the arrow? So those are kind of the three major trims that you'll see on these 9.3s, especially the earlier year NG 9.3s, kind of like my blue one out there. That is an arc. That is a 2003 arc. So basically, from my understanding at least, is the linear is kind of the entry level. You know, you're going to get the smaller turbo. That's denoted by the little T on the badging on the back. It's the entry level model, so it's going to have the smaller turbo, less power, less options. It's just a more basic car. Then you have the Arc, which from what I've heard is considered the luxury trim. So you don't get the little T, you get the 2.0 big T with the Arc, which is 210 horsepower as opposed to the 175 in the linear. Of course, you can upgrade the linear to the Arc's power level. People do that all the time. But really the difference between those is turbo injectors. I've heard cams are different too, but I know turbo and injectors are really the two big differences between the two. So thirdly, you have the Aero. Now the Aero is a little bit interesting because first off, it didn't exist until the 2004 model year. So in 2003, the third trim was actually called the Vector, and that was basically identical to the Aero. It came with different wheels. It had the more aggressive body kit, so it had the front lip on it. It had a different exit on the exhaust in the back. So it was just overall a more sporty car. It came with like a little body kit, I guess you could say. But in 2004, they changed that to the Aero. Now from 2003 to 2005, the Aero/Vector came with the same exact motor, same exact transmission options, everything as the Arc. So they both had the 2.0 turbo, they both had 210 horsepower, really it was just aesthetic differences as far as I'm concerned. And the Aero, one of the other big benefits was the interior. You got more aggressive seats, you got a different steering wheel, different trim. The Arc came with a wood grain trim, whereas the Aero/Vector came with like a silver trim, which was more sporty and aggressive. But in 2006, and this is where Saab really started to spice things up, they put a V6 motor in their Aero. So this car, my Turbo X, has the same motor that's in the V6 Aero, but I'll get to the Turbo X in a second because it's kind of like its own little separate thing. But in 2006, they put a 2.8 liter V6 in the Aero, and from 2006 to 2009, all of the Aeros came with a 2.8 V6, which is kind of referred to as the B284R or B284L. The R variant is the one that came with 280 horsepower, like in the Turbo X, and the L variant is the one that came with 250 horsepower, which was just kind of in the normal like front-wheel drive Aero. I should also mention that the smaller turbo linear came with the B207L, whereas the Arc and the four-cylinder Aero came with the B207R. So just a little bit nomenclature there for you guys. So you'll see Aeros that not only have different motors, but they look slightly different. And really the biggest way to tell a V6 from a four-cylinder Aero apart is from the exhaust. The V6 Aero has a dual exhaust similar to my Turbo X, except round tips, and it looks a little bit different. I'll put a picture on the screen. Whereas the four-cylinder Aero just came with a single exit exhaust, similar to what I have on that car, which came out this side right here. And then for whatever stupid reason, Saab got rid of the B284 motor in 2010, and for the last couple of years, the 9.3 Aeros went back to the four-cylinder. So one thing I want to mention is looks and the interior, because at some point obviously Saab did a facelift. So this is a 2008, this is the first year with the facelift. So the front end is completely different. You have a different hood, different fenders, different bumper, different headlights. This entire front end is completely different than the pre-facelift cars. So in 2008, that was the first year for the facelift. They also came with different doors. I'll put a picture of what the doors look like on the pre-facelift cars. You can see different handles. I personally like the look of these much better. Back bumper is slightly different. You also got the ice block taillights, which like a lot of people like more. But really the biggest thing to tell a facelift apart from non-facelift is just the front end, because they look completely different. And then in 2007, the year before they did the facelift, they updated the interior, and the 2007 and up interior is just miles better than the 03 to 06. The only thing that I like better about the 03 to 06, quick tangent here, is the SID display, which I'll show you guys. The SID is the little display that basically goes up right here on the 2003-2006. But in the 2007, they completely changed all this. I mean, this is just 100% different. They also updated the gauge cluster a little bit. So the interior is just completely different. So 2008 was also an important year, not only for the 9.3, but for Saab, well, I guess primarily for the 9.3, because they released their cross-wheel drive system. And this car right here is the first car to feature Saab's cross-wheel drive system. You'll see on the back here, actually, there's a little badge that says cross-wheel drive. So this cross-wheel drive is basically, it's a Haldex unit. The Turbo X, different trims came with different variations of the cross-wheel drive, like the Aero cross-wheel drive, or like the 2.0 normal 9.3s that just came with the cross-wheel drive. Some didn't have the ELSD. The Turbo X has the ELSD in it, which is just like an extra fun little part that can do some cool extra stuff. So it's a little bit confusing because you had the Aero cross-wheel drive and the Turbo X, which a lot of people like to say that they're identical. They're not, but you know, some people would just like to be funny and say that they are the same, but everyone knows deep down they're not. But they're very similar cars mechanically. So the 2008 and 2009 Aero cross-wheel drives came with the V6, similar to this, 280 horsepower, the B284R. And then they started introducing their cross-wheel drive system into the 2.0s. So I don't know which year they started in the 2.0s. Maybe it was 2008, although I don't know. But they came with a dual exhaust as well, and of course you can also have the cross-wheel drive badge, but still the B207R motor in it. Now, one other thing I figure I should mention, because I haven't talked about body styles. So you of course have the sport sedan, the SS, which is what these are referred to as. You also have the convertible. Now the convertible is a little bit confusing because of course that is a 2003, and 2003 was the first year where they produced the new generation 9.3. But in 2003, they still had the old body style of the convertible. So we didn't get the new generation 9.3 convertible until 2004. And then you also have the Sport Combi. The new generation Sport Combi was not introduced until I believe 2006. And both of those followed the same trims as the other ones. You had the Aero variant from 06 to 09 with the V6. Automatic manual interiors were the same for the most part. So if this is one of your first times watching the channel, these wheels did not come on this car. The Turbo X also actually has specific wheels that came with it. There's a lot of things that make this car special. If you're wondering, you know, some of the just generic things that make it special, check out this video up here. But it actually came with those wheels right there. I did get new wheels for this one and then put the Turbo X wheels on there. In terms of like, I don't want to say best to worst, but like entry level to highest tier, I guess you could say. So linear is kind of like the entry level you got, arc is kind of the middle, and then Aero is kind of the top, and then I guess above that you could have subcategories of like the Aero cross-wheel drive or the Turbo X. I should also mention the Turbo X was only made for the 2008 model year, and there's, like I said, there's some differences about it that make it more special. It was limited production, all these other, you know, cool little things. One other thing I want to mention is towards the end of the production of Saabs and the 9.3s, they kind of got like a little bit weird with some of the naming. I think it was only 2011, but they kind of got rid of the arc, linear, all that at some point, and they pretty much just called it the 2.0 and then the Aero. But I also know that in 2011 they didn't call it the 2.0, they called it the Turbo 4. So if you ever see a 9.3 with a Turbo 4 badge, you'll know right off the bat it's 2011. So pretty cool, because that's, you know, like the last year of it. So I just finished editing through that video and I realized I completely forgot to mention the 9.3X. So I'll just quickly go over it here. The 9.3X was offered the last couple of years of the 9.3. It was basically an off-road version of the 9.3, if you can call it that. It came with a cross-wheel drive, had some different body styling. It was raised up a bit, so just thought I'd mention the 9.3X. Also, there's some different like limited edition 9.3s that came out, like the Griffin Anniversary, all these other like special edition models that I just kind of didn't mention. So with that being said, that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video and found it informative, give it a thumbs up. See you all next time.